Welcome, one and all, to the third episode of Wild Dice. We have made it. Obviously, you know,
It's the big three.
one's a fluke, twice is a coincidence, and three times it's an actual fucking podcast. So here we go. My name is Lord Phylax, and I'm here with some of my best Warcry buddies.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, everybody. You all know me, Itan of Meta Musings. Thank you, Phylax. Written on your birth certificate. First name Lord, second name Phylax.
Exactly. The title is Revenant, actually.
Oh,
Revenant,
I see,
Lord Phylax.
Yeah. Yes, always good to be here to chat about Warcry. Let's go.
My name is Robert Viscomi, and you know me as the Girth Demon Premier. I am not Lord Phylax, who sounds like he's from Salo or 120 Days of Sodom. And yeah.
And I'm Toast, and I am really tired after like 30 non-stop videos produced in like 20 days. So I'm exhausted.
Very good. So,
I can't
Toast, what are we talking about today? You know this. You've got the... What are we talking about?
Today, we're talking about the death of Warcry. The death of Warcry. I know. It's true.
Wait.
So sad.
I've got some eye drop somewhere here.
It's been said so many times now that Warcry is dead. It comes up every 3 months, give or take. And I'm sad to say Warcry is dead again, lads. It's over.
It's dead
What
again
do we do?
after the second biggest update it's ever had. It's a dead game. I'm very sorry for it. There goes my entire career.
Yeah.
That's it.
It was all the waste. All technical kill team. Kill team's here. It's the next logical step. Warcry is dead forever. Underworld is here now as well. So what's the point in playing Warcry ever again? You know.
Yeah.
That's the end.
You know, they rebooted one and then they rebooted another, and they're gonna stop there. They're never gonna reboot anything. They're never gonna have a new version of anything.
Reboot? It was really good.
Games Workshop only does streams in twos, right? So that's all they do. So that would be true if it wasn't a pack of lies.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's complete shite.
You think someone would do that? Go on the internet and tell lies?
Who would do that? Maybe they would make videos just for clicks. Who would do that? I don't know. Anyway,
okay. After a week of the most clickbaity titles I've ever seen, from Mr. Toast over whatever he is, I don't think we can talk about.
No, we really can't.
But you know what? The thing is, yours are actually really informative and have really good content, and it isn't like 45 minutes of going like. But I think this game is dead because I have never heard of a tournament that's happened about it. And I'm like, I was in one last week and they're like, well, that sounds fake to me.
That's a deep fake. That's a deep fake tournament. All AI. You were never there.
I mean, all right. Let's break this down slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By the way, Rob's like completely insulted by just the idea of that.
That's it.
He's gone. Wild Dice is now 3 of us.
We've now disbanded.
Yeah.
We're like
absolutely.
the Beatles.
One new logo.
Yeah. But yes,
right.
Sorry, Aidan.
Yes. Let's break this down. Okay. Obviously Warcry is not dead. Okay. So
no,
that's one thing. But anyone who says it does is the same old tired arguments, right? These are generally people who have only played casual play. They expect the release schedule of every single thing that Games Workshop produces to be the same as like Warhammer 40k, where there's like new content, bam, 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 every single week. They don't. I mean, it seems like anyway, they don't make much of an effort to engage with the actual online community. And when you are in that situation, you become very isolated from what's actually going on. And I think you get somewhat of a skewed view as to what's actually happening in the game. If we want to talk about reality and what's actually happening, we had our boy John Bracken, the proverbial Warcry Jesus, come out in April,
Lord of the Sweater.
and he said, yeah, he came out on video and he said, right, this is what's going to happen with Warcry. I'm going to release updates, and they're going to be periodic updates. I'm going to put in everything that comes out in Age of Sigmar. Any models that you want to use, I'm going to put it in the game, and it's going to be periodic. And this is the focus that we're going to be on. And the best thing is that he didn't lie about it. It wasn't all Games Workshop speak for just like, oh, here's a thing, let's shut these guys up. He came out in April, he did one. We just had a really big update in September that's basically 2.5 factions.
Yeah.
They updated, kind of released. A lot of points updates for more competitive players, even casual players. We know that casual players benefit massively from them,
sure.
from points updates, because balance is important to everybody, right? You want to have fun with the models that you have. There are tournaments happening basically all the time. There were, 2 really, really big ones in America. There was Nova Adepticon. Over here in the UK, Warhammer World is basically once every quarter. There are events happening over in Europe. There are events happening all over the place. And the trend is that this is only going to continue. Right? Games Workshop is going to keep on pushing out FAQs and errata and updates every time something new comes out in Age of Sigmar. It's going to come, right? It might take a little while if they're doing one every 6 months, which is a good timescale, I think, by the way, in terms of game stability. I would hate there to be like, oh, here's an update every 3 months. Oh, by the way, if you only get to play a couple of times in a quarter, then you're going to have to basically learn an entirely new game system every quarter. So yeah, one of the indicators for me, and I know I'm going on a bit, is that Warcry is carrying on, and there's no, like, by now, if Warcry was dying and Warcry was dead, or if there was a new edition coming or something, we would have heard about it by now. So for me personally, that leads me to believe that Warcry at the moment is in a place where we will be getting regular updates, the game is healthy, and we are carrying on. One more thing before I forget, and then I'll let other people actually talk, because I know I'm like commanding this entire podcast.
It's a rambling old man over there.
Yeah. It's almost like I did a video on this just a few days ago. Is that people say, oh, there's no content. Right? There's no physical models coming out. No new warbands.
So much.
I know, it's so dumb. There's no warbands, so Warcry is dead. And I always push back with that, saying there are not just 63 factions. If you include all the Stormcast, there are 67 factions in this game. You're telling me that you just want more.
Yeah.
And you don't want Games Workshop to go back and revisit all of the old compendium teams, update them with fresh models. Like, okay, so you would prefer that we just got this never-ending cycle of stuff that we get with 40k, than Games Workshop actually taking the time, spending the man hours, because updating the points cost for like 100 fighters is not quick.
No.
Spending all that time and energy to really work on the game and make it the best version of the game it can be, you just prefer more stuff. Like, that's fine. Good on you. But that doesn't mean
that's what we're here for, Eitan. We're here to buy things. I'm not here to play. I'm not here to and I'm gonna make this point just once, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, because otherwise I'm just gonna be complaining. Spend half the time you would be complaining online, like getting some pals together and playing at your local.
Yep.
And that's the best way to make sure that game doesn't die. If you're having fun playing it with friends, right? I've done that all over Scotland, and the people that I've met and the games I've had, incredible. But I'm gonna leave it there, because you can't be shouting that too much, because there's reasons that people don't, but it's easy to complain. And the thing is, I'm more than happy to sit here and break down all the good reasons that people have to complain, right? If you think about it, a lot of this is to do with perception. And
Can I
it's to do with the
interject
fact
before
that,
you on the perception front, because I was not here. I want to
go on.
chime in my 2 cents on this.
Oh, no one else has chimed
It
in
was
yet.
all Eitan.
Like
He's
that
been
was
just
just Eitan going.
rambling
That
away.
It was all
that was
Eitan,
my
yeah.
TED talk on.
Eitan's
Eitan came
man.
in and was like, "I have a script."
I really wanted to hear it. I was interested in it. I think the biggest thing to do too is like a lot of people naturally always want to play or see things like which will lead into your like the perception of things. Like people want to really engage with that, like the philosophy of just in like psychology behind consumerism, right? Like of how people want stuff to buy to do it. The one thing I learned the very hard way about this game is there's 2 components to it. Like it's a hobby and a game. Some people like both, some people like one or the other. And that's it's a big thing for people. So when people are like, hey, I really like this line because it's a sick line, I have everything and you're not making anything else, so I guess it's not existing. And that's like one talk. The other talk is like I could care less. Like honestly, like I'm gonna line up. I only buy things and I piece things off eBay for when I want to buy stuff. Like I don't think I've ever painted a full box of a warband yet. I paint what I need and I move forward, and that's it. And then there are people who have the one box. They just meet up with their friends, and guess what? You don't have to play the fact. You don't have to play these things. You can play however you want. You can't yell and say that's the right way to play it though, but you can do whatever you want. The game is always there if you spend less time crying about things you don't like and moving forward and, like you said, getting some friends together, playing together, starting something up, change the rules for your local thing, whatever you want, but you have to do those things, right? And the perception is always going to be tied around it, because if people don't perceive it being supported, and although we just got 2 facts within 6 months of each other, which is phenomenal, and we got like a huge range of things
Yeah.
added in, so it lets the new AOS people come on in. So the people who bought their box, like the 2 friends that went and split their box of Skaven Tide, have complete models to use. They have things. People who are playing Underworld warbands can actually jump in and join. There's a lot of active support in terms of like points and everything, but the no product support is going to hurt perception no matter what, and that's just a reality of it. But it's far from dying. Like every time we see Underworlds, we're like, yeah, Warcry release, right? Because like we know it's
Yeah.
coming to us. So we get releases for us, we get releases from AOS, we get releases for Warcry. So we're eating from 3 facets, but still, it's like not seeing the whatever color it is, like a brown. I don't even know what color the Warcry box is. The red and black were the original, right? Like not seeing
Yeah.
that title across it really makes a disconnect for people. And it's easy to be like, well, I don't see it, so it must not be present. So that's tough. It's also tough when like they release a whole box and then they release the components months later, so people kind of peter out. But that's on their marketing and whatever front.
Well, but that's the thing. The nail on the head. The game itself, great, but we have a bad starter box that has Underworld's warbands.
Yeah.
There is little to zero support. Like last tournament was in September in Warhammer World. There's not going to be another one till next year. Whatever the reasons behind it. Because I know that the reasons are that the people aren't showing up for them, because we're getting 25 to 40.
Huge tournaments.
We got 25 on a Wednesday.
That's awesome. If it's on a Wednesday too, because it's like the dead middle of the work week, and people are.
And
like,
it's not just people who are local either. People
like,
are traveling to those events from like across England and the UK as a whole.
It was like a Wednesday, the first week after the summer holidays finished, so everyone was back to work.
The worst possible Wednesday, and it was like sold out still.
Yeah. So it's and at the end of the day, there's still no tournament packs.
No.
Unless you find something on eBay for 3 or 4 times the amount, there's no tournament packs left, unless you find a store that got one at the first printing. So those are things that you can definitely, people can definitely complain about, but that's not what they complain about. And those are the things that have the biggest impact, right? Events have the biggest impact. Making sure that there's and I'm not just talking competitive, right? do narrative events. Like, look at the guys that are running the narrative events of Warhammer World. They do like Warboss Kurgan and the animosity campaigns. Like, they just get together and they get their narrative events going, and they don't even advertise them because they have the people that they need to have. So they're just having fun, and they're having a good time,
I
and
think
that's
from
what
what
people
I
should do.
discovered, because it's not a video game, so everything's not set up for you, right? Nobody's innately saying like, here it is, here's your portal, here's the Nexus, jump in and go, right? A lot of it has to be self-started, and unless your area just naturally has people that like can currently meet up at a thing, and like it takes Kyle and I 2-3 months to grab 12 to 16 people from 3 to 4 different states to come to New Jersey, right? So then like you're willingly making that conscious decision to be like, I'm going to New Jersey on a Saturday, to leave Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, Delaware, right? Or tri-state area, to like come down and then come to like some shanty beach town to go play, or go up North Jersey to play, which is just the pits, by the way. And it's really down to, do you have a nexus of players? And if you don't, are you willing to put forth that community? Because James is not going to come down on his magic carpet and be like, hey guys, I'm installing a community for you. Everything is community run. And when you have massive natural communities for like 40K that have been around for many, many years, it's easy for them to be like, well, I've spent hundreds of hours painting. I'm kind of stuck in this world. It's really where I want to be. It's more so much like you have to attack the stores that have, and build the community. You have to attack the stores that have AOS followings. So that's why the compendium's so good, because it's like, hey, I want to play Warcry, and you don't have Horns of Ashud or Rotmire Creed, but you know what? I got Seraphon and you got Stormcast, and we could play. And it's going to take us an hour, and you only have 6 models. I only have 7 models. It's going to be fun. And then boom, that's how you get into it. But to go back to my point, like, these communities need to be started up by people and supported by people, right? And that's why like TTS exists in its own right. Like, it might not be in terms like the healthiest, because it's definitely like the most competitive sweaty lists in comp, and then casuals, fun, good time. But like, people, like, we made it so people could have it who don't have it near them. So it's up to people to go out in their local areas. Like, you live, I don't want to dox you, so I just had to stop myself. But you guys are in 3 different spots in the UK. And I'm sure there's like one of you probably has just no place, or a place that has a dead scene, or it's like an hour and something away. The other person's setting up place, and the other one of you lives in a grand old big city that I'm sure has stuff there or elements there, but it might not be the most convenient. So it's how you choose to support. If you want actual support from GW, then you have to say like, hey, we have the players. Don't put it on a Wednesday. Like, who cares about your Lord of the Rings skirmish game with 7 people who are cheating with dice in the toilet? Like, just put us on there.
Okay, let's not start throwing slander at the Middle Earth.
That game's popular enough to get another
Lord of
edition,
the
right?
Rings sucks.
That's getting another edition.
Yeah,
which
that's
Warcry, for the record.
That's another thing
man,
that's getting
Warcry,
a new edition.
I think people need to like.
Right. That game got a new edition after 0 product for like it. That game was basically like, you didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
All Games Workshop were doing was re-releasing old kits like every 6 months. Like that's all they were doing, right? So I don't think. Yeah.
It's not a game.
It's a pretty darn good game actually, but it's
a good game. It's a pretty good game.
Don't talk shit. Man. It's got people playing it on a very regular basis, and no, there's no.
You do not want to make an enemy of those Middle Earth guys.
Man.
Trust me, they will come
on. The mid 30s, 40-year-olds that are in public libraries. I'm really.
Dude, what are you talking about? Like, this is a dad game. We're playing a dad game. What? We're not throwing shade at other fandoms for being old and not wanting to spend hours playing a game.
I'm in that age bracket. I'm almost.
Yeah, bro.
We're all playing dad
like
here.
Friendly fire.
I think people need to like realize as well that Warcry is in a weird spot. It's not dead. People like throw out the word dead. It's not dead. It's just changing. It's going in a different direction than what it was going to before, and it likely won't change course for a while. And we've talked about this before, but I don't think Warcry is getting a 3rd edition anytime soon. Like, people are like, oh, it's due one.
Not next year.
It's due one next year. It's not getting one. Like, that's a fool's hope. Like, it's not getting one for at least 2 years, possibly more. And we're not seeing any more product for it for a fairly long time, because if we were going to get a new bespoke warband anytime soon, we would have heard about it by now. We heard about the Briar and Bone shortly after the Pyre and Flood came out. We heard about the Pyre and the Flood before whatever came before that, right? Like, we've always had a string of things in a pipeline that one knows coming out, and there's been nothing for like 3 months more, possibly, on the bespoke front, and that's not going to change. And I think it's like, well, instead we've received a shed ton of stuff in FAQs, like AOS additions to the game, and these haven't been like nothing. These have been like some of the most creative and interesting additions to Warcry ever. It's like, it's not a dead game. If it was a dead game, Ruination and Dark Oath would have been terrible. They would have just thrown out there with absolutely no consideration, and it would have been absolute crap. But these are genuinely fantastic warbands that are incredibly fun to play, and there's nothing like them. Like, give me more of that, because like 75% of all bespokes are shit anyway.
Yeah, so that's the other side, right? Is that I'd rather see them rework factions and improve on what's there than keep releasing Pyre and Flood and Briar and Bone to have dog shit level bespoke teams that have maybe a good ally with them and like a decent terrain piece, and then just the rest of it's just like, but you got it, and it's like, cool. I'd rather have it like what we're getting now, because there's a lot of stuff cooking, and like, but like, you know, like we talk all the time in private, all three of us, or four of us, because I can do math, and we talk about how a lot of the community are casual one box casual players playing with older rules, playing with not updated facts. So to them, like, they only want to play with like the Warcry stuff like that, and it's the perception of like, if I'm going in compendium, if I'm going on warbands, well, that's becoming a competitive list. When in reality, it's not. You just play a themed list, or you could just play dudes with names. Like, it doesn't make a difference. Or you could just use them in proxy for pieces you don't have. Like, there's no rules on how to enjoy yourself. You know, but it is again, it ties into that perception piece you're talking about before, where it's just.
So a common thing that I hear, when I, especially earlier on, when I was doing battle reports, is the phrase, are we playing Warcry or are we playing Compendium? And that's bizarre, because they're the same thing. But enough players in Warcry actually think they're a different format. And that's wild. And it seems Bladeborn. People don't know Bladeborn's actually a thing, and they get confused when they go to an event or to a game and go, oh, what the hell's this stuff? Because it's not commonly available information, because it's all locked to White Dwarfs and shit, right? There needs to be some kind of some sort of like a pack released, like a mission pack or a competitive pack that has all of this shit in one place, so people know that actually compendiums are a thing in the game, so are allies and so are Bladeborn. They're not just some random shit competitive players play. It's part of the game.
Yeah. So I think that's twofold, right? There are two things that I want to touch on there. One of them, I think for those players, I don't think the release of a mission pack that was put on Warhammer Community would actually matter, because if they're not playing with the most recent erratas, FAQs, whatever, that are already up there, and it's not like they're not advertised.
And that's it.
Unless
you go and you change their own books.
Exactly. They are as advertised as anything else for Games Workshop. Or any other update, it goes on Warcom, gets maybe a YouTube thing, whatever. That's not really going to change them. But what was I going to say? Fuck, it's gone. Oh yes. No, I've remembered. Haha. But yeah, so the pushback from some players on compendium teams, I think, is very much a Warcry 1.0 mentality, where there was. So you had all of the original warbands. Like we've seen it. There are players who just want Warcry to be chaos warbands in the 8 points, fighting to shine Abaddon shoes,
Yeah.
right? And that's what they're happy with, and that's what they want, and that's what Warcry should be to them. And the addition of all these other factions has somehow diluted what Warcry is and how it is. And this thing with compendium teams, I think compendium teams came out very late in Warcry 1.0's thing, even though I do remember the cards being sold. But Warcry 1 had the problem of it being released during COVID time and all sorts of other problems. And compendium teams themselves weren't necessarily all that balanced. Some of the most ridiculous stuff in Warcry 1 came out of compendium. Like, that's where machine gun skinks came from, right? Because they were dirt cheap. You could take a ton of them and they would mow you down. So I think compendium still has this perception of just being busted and being imbalanced. Despite people not actually playing with the new stuff, with the FAQs, with the erratas, and that in that whole environment.
Well, that's one of the great things that the second edition brought, was the fact that I don't know if people remember just how much more boring, and don't take this as me saying that the current bespokes, like the version 1 bespokes, are like thrilling gameplay, but
They're not. I'm gonna say it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna call a
but
spade.
they-
a spade
Most
here,
are
they're
pretty
not.
damn boring.
absolutely. But the thing is, they all got a significant power boost
Right.
to bring us to parity with the rest of them, right? And yes, there were some things that were a bit broken, giving 3 attack dice, 2 models around you. Terrible idea, apparently, which is fine. But, like, you're seeing that you can have really powerful abilities, or you can have really situational fun abilities. And then you get things like Cities of Sigmar, or you get things like KMK, which is like, these guys do this very well, and they have very obvious, like, advantages and disadvantages. The problem is a lot of the older stuff and some of the compendium teams, like the Corn Demons, all of those. There are some that have anything that has elves in it, the elf profile. I completely understand if a player wants to go, right, I want to get into this. And especially for a game where you can get in if you're playing Underworlds or AOS, and someone comes in and goes, hey, I'm playing, I have Zarbags, right? And I know that you can field a full warband with Zarbags. You get in and you play Zarbags, and you're not going to have a good time. And I understand that perception, because some people will go, well, that's what I want to play.
But I think there's like a disconnect. Like, I'm going to say it. Like, and I'm going to say, I think there's a disconnect of expectation with certain people. Like, you got in, right? You took what you wanted and you played, right? You did it. There's no litmus test for saying anything you touch and everything you touch has to be good. That's not the goal. The goal is to be playable.
No, but what I'm saying is,
but that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. Like, people come in and they're like, they do it, it's bad, and they have a bad time, and their initial gut reaction is like, what is this? Like, well, one, it's you got in and you played. That's what you wanted. If you said, like, I want to be in and I want to be competitive, can I take these pieces? That's a different story. But if most people are just doing it to be casual and content, then what's the issue? So you want your cake and you want to eat it too. Now you want to get in and play, but you want to be good. But you want to be good. It's not.
But that's what I mean. There's a difference between playing and having a chance and seeing what you should have done, right? And I see this all the time. That's why I have very, very curated teams when I do my demos, right? Because someone plays something that has nothing to hit T5 and above, and you get them to play against Iron Golems, and it's miserable. And they can't do anything there, right? And you can't expect a new player to know how to stay out of threat ranges and stuff like that. But even if they lose, they look at the game and they can't see. It's the whole thing of, like, a good game. If you lose, you learn something from your loss. And there's a lot of cases in Warcry where you lose and you go, I think the solution here is that I need to change my team. and that's fine. It's okay for that to happen every now and again. But there's a lot of war bands where you just don't have options, and that's not the case for newer stuff. But you have to get people to try it again, and you have to have that kind of like different experience. And you won't hear me like talk badly about the amount of options that we have. I think I'm a big fan, and I think the more options you have, the more people can grab their stuff and come and play with you. But there is a possibility that like they bring stuff that just not only are they going to lose, there's no other choice than to lose, and it's gonna not feel good the entire time. So it's a bit of a trap. But sorry, Eitan, go on.
Yeah, sure. So I think there are two things for that. One is what Rob said, which I totally agree on. Right, it's about expectations when you go in the game. Nobody, and I say this everywhere, every time it comes up on Reddit, I say this. Nobody in Warhammer 40k expects to pick up your start collecting box set and win against a fully built, fully tricked out army list at the same points level. No one expects it because they know it's a start collecting set, right? This is just for me to get into the game, play a couple of games, and I'll figure out what I need after that. The expectation in Warcry is that I can pick up a bespoke warband, and because it's 1,000 points, I should be able to compete with this warband. And I should have just as good opportunity as anyone else. And the problem is that that's just not the case, because Warcry, as much a game about list building as it is, you list build for certain things. Some lists might be better or worse into different kinds of builds. Some might be better or worse into different kinds of missions that you're playing, which is why I think that, Demetrios, your talk about having a curated first experience is super important, because you have two warbands that are roughly equal against each other, and they play each other, and you're like, oh yeah, I get how this works. If I'm personally, I'm saying like, all right, I'm going to go to an event, I'm going to bring Zarnag's kits. Now, I know how to pilot weird and wacky warbands like that, and it's possible.
Listen, yeah,
but for
event
a first
is a different
player,
question.
Yeah. But for a first time player, sure, you can get into it, you can play the game, but you just have to be aware that, okay, yes, it's 1,000 points, but you're going to be shafted on some missions, some builds. You're not going to have the tools for it. But that's the same for any game, unless we're talking about pure constructed list building. Spearhead. Yeah, but Spearhead.
But there's still a
Spearhead's
hierarchy
constructed.
in Spearhead.
Yeah, Spearhead isn't a balanced game, because there are some Spearheads that are better than others.
Same thing with Combat Patrol.
Yeah,
not all
but
boxes are made
they're
equally.
close. But they're
are
a
they?
lot closer.
Have you ever played the Yndrasta Stormcast Spearhead into anything?
I haven't yet. I haven't, but no, but that's the thing. The design, like, thought process behind Spearhead was that when you go to get your Spearhead box to start building your Age of Sigmar army,
sure,
you have an intro point to learn the game.
Spearhead as a game mode is constructed.
Yeah, it's constructed. I'm not a fan of like the fact that list building is so restricted and stuff. I'm not saying that it's an experience that I'm looking for, but I'm saying GW is showing us, right, that when they're looking at this, they're seeing that new players need to come in and have a chance, right? So I think
they've made a specific game mode for it. Like, you can play Warcry with only bespoke warbands, and it's a lot tighter. There are still warbands, some bespokes that are garbage, but it's
true. Yeah.
It's much tighter.
I mean, just to finish my point, like I think that a bespoke should be able to pull its weight, and there are a few bespokes that aren't. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you should get one box and take a tournament comfortably, because then that bespoke is obviously horrendously over. Everything has to be too efficient so that every bit wins, because it's not like any bespoke has a clear kind of play style that will get you there, right? Except, again, KMK is, I think, one of the most well-defined themes, where it's like, this warband does this. If you do this, you're going to probably win. but most of the other ones don't have a thing you need to do. Like, you play Iron Golems, and the only reason you're going to win is because your guys were tougher, and you got your breacher in to kill what it needed to kill. And you know, that's a very like fluffy theme, but that's it. It's just you got your efficient bits to do efficient things, right? But that's it. There's like 4 or 5 out of the 30 that are like good theme, and they've just kind of tidied them over time. You know, the buffs to Corvus Cabal,
Yeah.
the buffs to Cypher Lords. Like, it's leading us towards that. So I think that having bespokes that can hold their own, I think the expectation, even if that is not a reasonable expectation, I think GW is working towards making
I would
that.
hope so. I would really hope so. Like, because there are some absolutely like stellar bespokes. Like, I think we can all agree that RBF, Hunters Hawanchi, Wildercore are all up there in the upper tiers, right? Like, absolutely fantastic bespokes that hold their own.
Yeah, but hunters by themselves are garbage. Yeah, unless you're playing an objective mission pack, hunters are bad.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess.
And that's the other thing. They need RBF and hunters need a competent player. So a starter, like a new starter getting into the game, taking that box, expecting to win, you're not going to win. But that's not because of the box. That's because you need to learn how to play, and it's difficult to pilot. And that's different, because you sit down and you go, oh, I got stomped, but I can see why. And that's that. Then you've got them locked, because they're like, oh, okay, I see the puzzle. I just need to learn how to solve it.
I mean, there are definitely some more bands that do need some proper elevation. Whether we'll see full on like reworks of bespokes, I don't know. But even just like some points changes, right? Like Skirgan True Blades, Claws of Karanak, Cypher Lords still are like some of the lower tiered warbands that need some serious help. And in the case of the Skirgan True Blades and Claws of Karanak, they're fairly new warbands. And it would be nice to see them on the tabletop again, because we saw them for maybe 5 seconds and then they were thrown in the bin because they don't do enough. That being said, though, apparently Skirgan True Blades, according to a commenter on a video a few months back, Skirgan True Blades are a perfect faction to play for new players because they do the big smashy thing and they're fast. So they have the thrill of movement whilst also being able to delete things. Apparently.
I'm going to jump in too, because I'm sorry, I'm getting backtracked here or sidetracked. The other thing too, right, is like, we were talking about like good for new players or not, and I think we're still on that, but like, I don't know if it's a personal thing with me. Like, there's some people who just want to pick a box and go just by the way it looks. And again, like, then you can't expect anything other than like, oh sweet, it's good, or like, it's not that good, but I really like the models, like if that's what you're going on. But like, if you're somebody who like goes in and you're like, I want something to be somewhat workable, is it okay? I think it's also as like a person, it's your responsibility to do a little research that if it's okay. Like, Hunters of Hawanchi looks sweet, right? Like, I love chameleons, they're one of my favorite things. And before I bought it, I think I watched, like, this is before like I was playing like Warcry to where I am at now. You know, like I watched off meta stuff on Hawanchi. I'm like, oh, it seems like a really hard, like I got to buy multiple boxes, or I got to be able to like, you know, put multiple things together to get multiple claws. That's not what I'm willing to do. Like, because I would hate like if I bought that box and then all of a sudden I found out that box by itself is turbo garbage. But that's on me though, right? I'm not going to.
I disagree.
No. You have to hold self accountability. You're not going to buy a car without researching it.
Bro,
you're not going to buy a mortgage without researching it.
No. This isn't. This is a hobby. This is a team for a hobby.
It's a consequence choice.
No one goes, hey, if you buy a Honda and it doesn't work, that's kind of on you, because you know that some Hondas are sold and the engine is actually the engine of like a moped, and you should have done your, you know what I mean.
Just to point out for brand safety, all car companies have the potential to sell you shitty moped engines, not just Honda.
I feel personally attacked with my Honda Civic in the driveway with 220,000 miles on it.
No, I had a Honda moped when I was growing up, and it was actually the exact opposite. They're incredible, but like that's what my point is. When you go and you buy something, you shouldn't be expected to do like in-depth research. I'm not saying that everything needs to be a fucking banger, but like you need to be able to just play a game and not get shit stomped by every single thing that's out there.
Okay, look.
Would be nice.
Let me put it this way, Demetrius. Do you play Kill Team at all?
No.
Okay.
Ew.
Most recent tier list has come out for Kill Team.
You don't get shamed for that, but I got shamed for making fun of Lord of the Rings.
So at the very bottom, D tier, so the equivalent of our Askagan True Blades, you got Blades of Cain, Chaos Cult, Pathfinders. S tier, any kind of Space Marine. If you're playing Pathfinders into Space Marines, it's the same as playing basically Askagan True Blades into like old Horns of Hashut. But the difference is, as the Pathfinder player, I can do nothing to do anything about it. I have to change my faction because I can't ally stuff in. I can't change my build. I can't do. No amount of play is going to save me here. So it happens in every game.
No, it happens in every GW game, and we should probably expect better of them.
And we're talking about Games Workshop games, and unfortunately, Warcry is at a position at the moment where, except Lord of the Rings, yeah, sure. But the thing is,
I don't know.
We're at the position at the moment where Warcry's released. All right, let's take.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Exactly. Warcry's
out. I mean, we're going back to Caveat Emptor because we know that this is bad, but that's not how it should be. But it is how it is.
Yeah,
so we need to work around that.
What I'm very hopeful for is the fact that you do see some of these older warbands. You know, we had the battle traits released. You got people figuring out new builds. We got all sorts of things happening with the old warbands, and slowly but surely they're becoming playable. I would expect at some point, because Games Workshop is doing these really big balance passes, for them to go and address those warbands at some point, because that's what they're doing. They're literally doing points cost adjustments for balance. So, like, if I took True Blades and I whacked 20 points off of every single fighter in True Blades, suddenly they're an entirely different warband.
They're still boring as fuck, mind you, but they are also much better.
Yeah, and there's space for an ally, so that gets you into that system.
Well, like, an ally, you get more guys. You know.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. Like, if you have the Crimson Court, and now there's like a bit of space there to get a couple of guys, you know, you've got it. Kind of seamlessly gets you into the ally and Bladeborn system, I think, a bit better, and I think that's reasonable. I think that's good for the game.
So Blood Bowl, right? The Blood Bowl starter set is wonderful because you get 2 teams, but you also get like expansion shit in it. So like you get star players in it as well. So you can take your base ass team and then you can expand upon it within that box. And a Warcry starter set that had 2 warbands and some basic ass, generic ass allies that you could add in to those warbands and any other warband in that Grand Alliance to encourage people to get into that thing would be great. Even if it was just a repackaged curse, the shitty stuff that we've got now, right? Repackage that and just high in like the Pyregeists for undead and some random ass quest or soulsworn for the other half of it, right? And then boom, there you've got your Bladeborn allies to go in there. You've got your actual full size warbands. Boom, good to go. Encourage people to actually use the systems that are there, as opposed to.
So what you're saying is you want the new Underworlds boxes, where you get 4 teams.
That could do it.
Yeah, dude.
That could do it.
Smart. That is such a smart product, dude. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was like, well, I didn't play it, but I might play now because I can get 4 things, which is amazing. And I think that's also a strong point that nobody understands in Warcry is that typically in these games, right, you have a like large scale big hammer games, you commit to an army. You're not going to be like, I painted up 1,500 points in Necrons and then be like, now it's time to hard swap to orcs, right? I mean, you could. It's manic. I mean, I do that. So like,
we'll do that.
It's very doable, but it's not the best though, right? Like where in a skirmish game, like you can be like, hey, like I just built this warband, but I can easily pivot tomorrow and do this. Or I can take these pieces from Underworlds and say, hey, this guy's the same size as a stab grout there, but he can flex as this, but he can also be a knobbler if I need it to be. Like, it's no holds bars. And there's like, with the skirmish game being available, I don't know how it is with Blood Bowl. I can't really speak upon it, but it sounds dope that you get like star players and stuff to kind of build up. But like, also same thing too, like we don't want to step too much out because then we're like comparing apples to oranges to bananas here, because like Kill Team is predicated on a box or two of itself, right? It's never predicated on, like, I look at my stuff downstairs, I only have one warband that's a box. Two, I'm sorry, Iron Golems and Monster Kills. I lied, 3. I also have the Gorger Maw Pack, which I'll never play, right? But I haven't painted. Kyle painted them up for me. And honestly, most of them is just mix and matching pieces from different things. So I buy like an Ardboy Big Boss there. I buy a thing over here. I never have to commit to buying like 20 Space Marines or a Combat Patrol to get started or a Spearhead to get started. And I think people get upset, but they don't realize the flexibility that's inherent to a skirmish game like this has. Is like buy your one box of Asgard and True Blades, buy some heroes from other things you have fun. If your expectation is to have fun, you got it. It's easy. Have a good time with somebody. Pick somebody you like and have fun. But like, and yes, I agree to go back, harken before. Like, oh man, like nobody should have the expectation of like, I want to pick it up and get it, and it could be bad. Like nobody wants that. I'm not saying that's correct or right, not morally or ethically, but it's the reality of the situation. Is it's going to happen, and no matter what. Like same thing. I play World of Warcraft because I don't value myself, and there are certain classes you can pick that are off meta classes that are just not that good because they just do not, when you press the button, it does not do as much number as another class that presses a button. And that's just how it is. I've not met one game that has succinct, like, and perfect balancing and crossing it. Like sometimes you're just going to lose and it feels horrible. I'm not saying that's good. Deal with it. You know, everybody takes their licks because you spent money and hours painting, and I feel for you. But also, like, if you're stepping into the realm of GW, you're stepping into the realm of GW. It's like going into a gladiator's ring and being like, I'm gonna have a good time, bring a bunch of pillows, we're gonna have a slumber party in the middle. Like, it's not gonna happen.
So this might be a bit mean to Games Workshop, but like none of us are shills here, right? So would it be mean to say that Games Workshop product, game, whatever they are, right, is tarted up beer and pretzel basement dweller games that people have accidentally made competitive, and then Games Workshop just went, you know what? Hang on. Shit.
100%.
People want this competitive
100%.
Exactly
and then failed to do it successfully 50 times in a row.
Yeah.
Warhammer was started by basically a bunch of nerds in a basement saying, we want to play a game, we want to use our D&D monsters and our D&D fighters, and we want to play a game out of it. So yeah, of course.
No, but specifically Warcry, you can see. So Blood Bowl has a very specific system of starter boxes, and then you get your star players. Age of Sigmar has specific units that you get, and you have your starter boxes for Spearhead, and you get the rest. And this one is a free-for-all. This one is we know we have like a good rule set, so we're going to use that, and you can do whatever the fuck you want as long as you're buying stuff from everywhere. And
yeah,
it's genius because Underworld stuff, they're re-releasing a bunch of Underworld stuff. Incredible. Do you think it's only Underworld's players that are going to buy them? No, they all have them. That's not for them. That's for us.
It's also they also use it in Age of Sigmar too. Like you could take Morgoth.
Well,
they're cutting down on that. They're massively cutting down on Underworld.
And the Warcraft stuff's also getting shafted from it.
Sorry, backtrack on that. I misled everybody.
No, that's fine. It's something that I've been very annoyed about because they used to do the crossplay of, we're going to try, if you buy one thing, we're going to try and make sure you can play in everything, because then it's more avenues to go in. And between Warcry and Underworlds, I had almost a full army for Slaves of Darkness, and then they cut them all. So now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not playing that.
I knew this dude who had he had 6 boxes of Splintered Fang for his STD army. And like, imagine
Okay.
losing that, dude. Imagine, like, I know people like, my army got squatted. I don't know if it happened yet or not, but like, imagine being
did.
like, I'm picking up Warcry to play AOS, and then it's just gonna be kaput. Like,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna change the whole faction. But like, that's also like, I realize that's like, and I think that's like the biggest decision when like I've been looking at wanting to play 40k, like either Kill Team or Big Hammer for like what feels like a decade now. And I'm like in paralysis when I go shopping for it online because I'm like, this looks sick, and everyone's like, play what you love, right? Play what you love. And I go back to what you're saying before. Someone always ruins it by making it competitive. But I think as people, we like, there's a lot of people that just want to win. Like that's an inert drive in them. And there's some people like, I don't care, right? So like it's, you can't cater to both. You can't cater to none. Like how do you do it? Like it's an impossible task for them. Should they be better? Sure. But like also like there's gonna be people who look to seek and break it and make it better, and then that always shits on everybody else for it because everyone's like, why are you doing good? I don't like it. My toys should be better. Like, sorry kid, like I don't know what you want. Like, but like in the same sense, like I can't buy an army because I'm afraid of investing in all that time for it to be bad. So I'm over researching. I'm stuck in paralysis because I was like about to pull the trigger on like a card of Necrons, and then they got changed, and then this happened. I'm like, maybe the right path is to build what you like, and that's it. But then that means I'm doing it for the hobby, and like I'm like a 75-25 guy. I like the game more than I like the hobby.
A veteran 40k player who retired and will never return, I don't think. How you play 40k is simple. You do actually pick what you want, what you like. Because if you pick what's powerful, it'll get nerfed within 2 months, and then you'll sell your whole army on eBay. Eventually, your thing will get good. Just hold out for it. Don't worry, it'll happen.
Next edition, it's in cycles.
Yeah, it's very short cycle.
But I mean, that's why I was heartbroken by Sacrosanct.
They're gone.
It was like I painted them, and I was like, it's fine. I don't have to worry about it. At some point, they'll come around, and then they just killed them all. They just killed them all, bro.
They didn't even have a cool story. They just came down because the forge was broken, and they're like, "We got nothing else to do."
Yeah, it's like, well, we need to go home and like fix the forge. Like,
all right, a bunch of mechanics.
Anyway, it's fine. I go over that.
Right.
Bloody hell.
It's fine. I've gotten over that. Really, I'm not going to go into another rant.
He says the solitary tear rolls down.
Just
his
to go
cheek.
back to
No, I'm gonna be using them everywhere. It's gonna be sacrosanct, anyways.
You just got dogged by your thing right there. That was amazing.
Man.
But yeah, no, going back to
Bladeborne. Sorry, let's jump in there quickly. So with the, I find it really entertaining. Just the idea that some people are under the impression that the FAQ hit Bladeborne, right, to make them all cheaper, and then they've released a whole bunch of Bladeborne now to buy, and the thing there's some sort of correlation there, and I'm convinced that this was just a happy accident because I don't think Games Workshop have the ability to do 100%. That in any meaningful way where they can actually plan ahead for 2 separate games to release simultaneous things. I refuse to believe that. Complete accident.
I think it's awesome.
I have no idea.
I think it's super great. I have a friend who won't play Warcry because he doesn't like playing unnamed chaff. Then I introduced him to the Black Talons box, and then I showed him Underworld stuff.
Yeah.
So he'll only play named characters because that's what he wants for his fantasy of fun. He's like a Marvel Crisis Protocol player.
Ah.
Right.
And I think that, but I think that's cool though, because that's the other side of the ball. Maybe you don't want Grot number 1 in Elf Boy number 6. You want, you want Morgok, you want Zarbag, you want Mollog, you want Kagra, you want all these things. And I think that's a pretty fair ask in all honesty. Like, I think that's the other side of the point. I think that's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, 1.0 having all these unnamed 8-point fighters essentially have like pseudo gladiator appearances really got me rock hard. But like, we've moved on. The time moved on. We're moved on. Yeah. We're past it. Please.
Yeah.
No, I like named characters. I'm all for that, and I get the draw of the Black Talons and the Order of Vizier, because they're all just named. It's cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Just have fun.
I I wouldn't want a lot of them in the game where everybody is like these superheroes, but narratively you get some really cool things, right? It's like, oh, I'm bringing the Black Talons. All right, I'm playing against like the Iron Golems today, and you can story it out, right? The Black Talons are your heroes. They're going in against the Iron Golems because they got to raid Archeon's fucking piss pot or whatever they're raiding today. You know, and you can get good stories out of it. But I think some of the reservation is where I think there's, again, we're going back to perception here, and some people have the impression that, oh, I need Bladeborn to win because Bladeborn are the best things, and that's what I don't like. Is the perception?
Yeah.
And I mean, one, that's not true. It just happens to be that there are a couple of Bladeborn units that are the most used in the game, and when all you see is tournament results come out and you see Bladeborn units in them, then oh yeah, sure, they're going to be in there. But no one says, oh, Varangard is broken because of X, in the same way that they say Bladeborn are broken because of X.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't know.
Actually, a good point. The other thing too is like, honestly, if would they be happy? So let's say like we're trying to make that crowd happy because like we want more people to play the game. Ultimately, we want more of a crowd, and if it grabs the majority, that's what we want, right? And they don't like this idea of this. So I think a lot of complaints too, right, is like you bring a leader in. I bring in Dientelos, right, and then all of a sudden I get his Electro Boys, right? So I get all the Soul Blight abilities. And then I get their abilities, but even though I'm playing Flesh Eater Courts. And then I get Flesh Eater Courts abilities. So maybe, right, instead of saying like, hey, you want to bring Dientelos, that's cool, you can't bring his boys if you want to ally them in. That way, it cuts down a lot of problems with that, and you're not just having the spam show up in every soup list. That might be a different story. But you could still take whatever Dientelos' ability is. Obviously, you wouldn't. It doesn't work. He is not good as just Dientelos, right? So it's there are other factors into how do you fix this then? Like, what is the problem inertly? Like, if there's a perception, how do you fix a perception on this? Do you just let them not ally in or do these things?
I think as well, like players who come into any game, like so people who play Warcry, who come into Warcry, who are brand new or have been there for a while and are more casual, like the visual design of warbands and the thematic coherency those visuals have, and they are really off-put by random ass allies from random ass factions being thrust into their stuff. And I get that as someone who does like thematic cohesion in their lists. I totally get that.
Then paint your guy the same.
Yeah, like convert up, right? You can just convert things up. You can paint them up differently. You can find ways around that. But there's a very clear divide, I think, between the casual, I would argue even the intended audience for Warcry and the competitive audience that has built up around it, which is equally as valid, right? Even though Warcry might not have been intended to be a hyper-competitive game, it's becoming that in its own little niche. And
I think any game will naturally, like, that can be played on a bigger scale or featured in tournaments. Anytime there's like there's a first, second, third prize, nobody's gonna show up and be like, you know what, like everybody should just win first. Like, that's not how it works. Like, people want to compete to win. People play to win. Like, that's, some people should like show up, have a good time, throw some dice, nothing wrong. That's beautiful. I think that's a great part of being part of this community. But also in the same sense, people do want to win. Like, that's a natural thing.
Well, I think it even extends further than that, really. I think it goes down to match play as a format. So for, I think this is a Warcry podcast, right? So what are you doing listening to this if you don't know what it's about? So you can either draw cards as your missions and your setup, or you can play match play. There are a bunch of different rules associated with match play gaming, like how you set up your stuff and all of this kind of thing. But generally speaking, in the rulebook at least, they are two completely separate formats. And I don't even think it's competitive players. I think it's match play as a whole is seen by the casual player base who like to draw their cards and who like to do all of this stuff, is seen as, okay, this isn't how Warcry is supposed to be. This isn't what it's meant to be. So I'm just going to reject anything to do with match play, despite the fact that some of the biggest complaints about Warcry are that the massive randomness in mission generation makes it so that some warbands basically auto lose. The randomness in deployments mean that some warbands basically auto lose because your big super thing is maybe stuck at home until turn 3 or 4. And that's especially from other like creators and other people that I've watched videos for, that those are some of the the biggest complaints. Whereas if you play match play, all of that goes away because you're playing proper structured missions that are designed to reduce the randomness that people hate.
And they're not all good. Like, that's not. They're not all good.
No. They're not all
does
good.
help,
But
for sure.
as a concept and as an idea, it's that's specifically what it's for. But then you get players who like to play with the cards and like to build their warbands that way, and they say, "Oh no, match play is basically all full of sweaty tryhards." So that's what match play is, and that's what it means to play a match play event. And I've spoken to people who have said, "This is I only play casually. This is my first match play event, and I'm really worried that it's going to be full of these sweaty tryhard players that we see." And I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about it. The reality is that 80% of the field are just normal people who want to go there.
That's
play
where
Warcraft.
Itan fast rolls people and says, "Get out of my face, nerd." Like and subscribe. I got rules wrong.
I just got a flashback to the Southampton tournament where I rocked up on a table with like a cider and a Monster Energy, and I'm like, I'm gonna take my good self on like the biggest roller coaster because alcohol puts me to sleep, and that's why I have the Monster, and I'm gonna be like this, and this is gonna be a great time.
Balance.
We call that doing burnouts because you're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time.
Yeah,
dude, it's a good time.
I think as well, just to slightly pivot into possibly for a short while into list build, like lists. We've talked a lot about lists and how different warbands specifically are like the path to power. You can't succeed in certain ways. But to me, I could be alone here, and I often get told off for ever saying this out loud. Pilot skill, player skill, makes up a massive part of success in Warcry. And it's not just the list you build, it's not just the warband you play. Like, a good player will do well in any event, in any game, running any warband, because it doesn't matter as much as you might. It matters a massive. If you want to win tournaments, it matters a big amount. But if you want to do well in tournaments, it's not as pivotal as you might think.
No, so I will say, like, if you want to go 3-1, you just pick something and you get a lot of reps.
Practice.
Like that's it. And I've got players in my local group, and shout out to Scott, who took Parageists and just played with them and got them to, I think he got them to 2-2, and he was like, you know what, I'm glad with this because they're not strong, but this is all down to player skill. And you know, I see you all the time with your bespokes. The fact that you have games with Cypher Lords winning over Caradron Overlords pre-buff, pre-nerf, sorry. And I'm like, what? Like, there's no way. And then I see that you're actually playing someone who is also good. And that's the bit that is like, you know, sparks start flying off. And it's like, it's I think I was going to say all four of us, but like Rob plays like double Mega Boss, so like no. But like I think all three of us will go regularly off meta.
I'm plugging it in.
Like, yeah, that's half of the fun of it.
Yeah,
you know, like, and you know, no shade to people that play on meta lists, but I think that there's the potential, and it's a lot more fun to take something really fucking stupid and like do really well and see everyone go, oh my god, is this like broken? It's like, yes, actually, but like it just requires you to play a bit more with it.
Yeah, you just need 1,000 reps. And
you need to get well, maybe not 1,000. I don't have the attention. I don't have the attention span for that. But like it just requires a bit of faith in yourself, reading the pack a bit, and seeing what you can get away with.
Yeah. And I think, like, the interesting thing about Warcry in general is that I don't find, like, when I go to an event, there are very few people there who are going to the event specifically and they're saying, I'm going to win this event. So I'm going to bring the best thing. I'm going to go super hard. And I'm going there because I want, you get it in 40K, right? Like, all the time, like the top 20%, 30%, 40 are just like people like, yeah, I'm going to go win this event. Oh, so good.
I just like people like, yeah, I'm gonna go win this something. Oh, so good.
But,
I thought you were gonna go full South Park there with the nipples.
I'm going to clip that, and I'm going to have that in so many videos. You have no idea.
Great, I'll take it. Free publicity. But in Warcry, you kind of don't get that. I don't find, especially in the UK. You might only get a couple of guys like that. I know personally what I'm doing nowadays. Like, for me, I'm happy going 3-1. I want to go there and I want to have a good time. I love the game because I like to have fun with it. So I'm going to bring something cool. And yeah, you know what? I'm consider myself a decent player, so that's fine.
You suck.
I don't. It doesn't matter basically if I don't win the event, and I find that there's a lot smaller pool of those really diehard I'm a go in there full force players in Warcry than in other places. I don't know how it is in the States. I don't know how it is in Europe. But if you are a casual player,
the UK Europe, or am I wrong?
Well, we left. So
oops.
So it's like, for a casual player, having the perception that, okay, match play is this and this is what match play is. I think all it takes is for them to play 1 or 2 games of match play and they find out, oh, it's actually not like that. It's like this, and the people are cool, and it's not as sweaty as I thought. And again, it all comes down to perception, how people think the game is as opposed to how it actually is. And one of the biggest problems that we have as people who push the game is, how are we changing this? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
Just need to get people to play an event.
Just play an event. That's it. It's honestly it. It is the most cool, chill community in events ever. In Nova, we had about 10 out of the 26 players were from TTS League. So we had some really good players there, but nobody was like, no, judge this. Nobody. We had a really chill event, dude. People were having a good time. This is the first event I ever played in. I just told people, I'm a little new. If you just explain what your stuff does. We also, at least in every event I've been in and the ones I run, we make you print out a copy for yourself and print out a copy for your opponent, so that way they can look, so you're not just giving a TED talk 5 minutes before the game starts and like trying to remember. What's up?
I forget all the time.
Oh yeah, you're like, and then this guy on a double activates if he has 1 damage within 3 inches of a guy, and then he moves. Like, dude, I'd be like, listen, just fucking. No,
I'm like, these are my 3 big things, and these are chaff. These are their stats. Like, that's all you have to worry about.
Nope, I just gave him a paper. I said, any questions, ask me along the way.
No, I agree. I think that's down to a couple of things. I think the first one is the crowd. It is mostly older. It is mostly don't have a lot of time. So, like, I'm just here to have fun. And I also think that the second thing is, we all know that there's quite a bit of randomness. The dice rolls, the initiative roll, and your attack rolls, because there's no defense rolls, it's very much like whatever you get. So it is possible to make all the right moves and have absolute dog shit luck and to have a really difficult game. And I think part of the kind of really high tier competitive play is knowing how to play around that and building a team that can perform even if you don't get your dice rolls.
Yes.
So that you have like a really high ceiling, really high floor of how badly you can do. But again, that's competitive skill up there. But you can have a good time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they play Warcry on a higher level, or try to trip up on the idea that Warband, they have people are very stagnant. Metas are stagnant. People's lists tend to be based on established lists, and additionally, their playstyles are playstyles that they do in every single situation. So when they go up to a situation where they can't or they don't play well into a specific warband or mission, they don't necessarily change their playstyle up and get massively, massively punished. Like the story of how can Safe Lords ever beat pre-nerf gunline KO? You change how you play, massively change how you play, and you don't run into the gunline and get shot to death. It's hard, but you have to change how you play. And no two games.
You can do that?
Yeah, man.
What? Don't get shot?
Yeah, man.
Teach me your secrets.
No two games are alike, and you should definitely go into it with the mindset of how can my warband win the situation with as few dice rolls as possible? Because once you start relying on dice, shit's wild. It goes your way. Like, you've got to do as much as you can with as little dice as possible, and find a way. And it's absolutely doable in so many situations. But that again, it comes to experience and practice and reps and understanding your warband in and out. So if I'm playing at a huge disadvantage, how to leverage what few strengths you have to still get that win.
Yeah, no, it is, right? Like a lot of people say, oh, Warcry is a game all about luck, not about skill. But I would argue against that. Like, if it was all about luck and not about skill, you wouldn't see the same players topping events over and over, regardless of what. Oh God, I've just agreed with that guy of yours. Same people winning events over and over, regardless of what warband they have, right? Because how to manage your actions effectively, how to go into different fights, how to approach different opponents, different stat lines, how to approach different missions. That's where the skill of the game is, how you maneuver your pieces, where you place pieces. It literally, you're absolutely right. Like, you don't want to be rolling dice to win the game. You want to try and minimize that, because the moment you're right, the moment you start relying on dice, then it's like it could all go badly, and okay, I've just lost the game because of this.
And that's why elite warbands are so weak against hordes, because elite warbands have to claw back that activation advantage, that disadvantage they've got in activations, and to do that, they have to roll dice to kill things. And if those dice don't work, you're fucked. The horde warband can win without rolling a single dice. They've got enough of the guys on the board. They can do it. It's fine.
Yeah, but then you've got this situation where you have players who don't want to change their lists, and they like playing what they want to play and how they want to play, and that's how they do it. And that's where you get this perception of a stale meta from, because if everyone's basically doing that, then the meta doesn't change. When in reality, there are ways that you can play against some of these warbands, and it's more rock, paper, scissors, as opposed to just, rock and paper duking it out. Like, scissors exists. You can play it. Nothing's stopping you from playing it.
Alex, you've died.
Go for it, Demetrius. I know you're ready.
Are we doing hot takes?
Toast, you had some stuff you wanted to talk about, right, Toast?
So I put out my tendrils for some hot takes, and it wasn't actually for Wild Dice. It was for my own little self-project over a little while. And a few have really stood out that I think are so interestingly charged that I want to talk about them,
it's
bring
a
them up,
way of saying stupid,
and go from there. But I'd also, not to rail on anybody in particular here either. Let's not be mean to these people.
I'm gonna.
These are valid takes.
I will.
And the one that really jumped out first, one of the first responders, right, was from a guy called FemCactus4630, right?
That's Mags and TTS.
Is it really?
Oh, right.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So Warcry is small enough.
So,
I just had a game with him before we played.
I see. So Warcry is small enough that most lists...
she.
I'm going to read my goddamn hot take out one day, I'll tell you.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we've got the thingy. She won the TTS tournament last month.
That's pretty cool.
She's also one of my members, so I don't want to say anything bad.
Yes.
It only benefits Atan.
No, it's just big props to her. Like that's all.
She's a really cool person too. So I'm interested to hear this hot take. Sorry. go
Yeah,
on.
so
Yeah.
Warcry is small enough that most lists that win tournaments are bad, and a list winning a tournament means nothing about how good it is. Warcry players are largely not interested in true competitive play, regardless of how much they say they are. And that's, I think, a really interesting take. I don't disagree with it entirely, but I also can't say that I agree with it either.
What do you define as a bad list?
Ooh,
Like, what's a
Perfect.
bad list?
Right,
Perfect.
okay.
give me the operational definition of a bad list.
There we go.
So okay, I've got a take on this. I you wrong.
Sorry, dude. This was a layup, dude. I'm cleaning up my rats for the raviolis, dude.
Right. So she has a point, I think. And right, here's the thing, right? If you go into an event and you're playing competitively, the how your route to success, there are several things that feed into it, right? There's player skill, which we've talked about a lot. There's the list that you take. There's the mission pack. All of these things. So yes, it's true that a good player can basically take whatever they want. And I'm not saying they can take absolute garbage, because even a good player with absolute garbage, they'll only get so far. If you look at the lists that are winning events, even if they're not the strongest thing, they are lists that have been built with intent and with an idea behind them. This is how the list is going to play. This is what it's going to do. Unless it's like just a one box whatever. That's generally how these winning lists are, right? And you can take something weaker, and all that really does is it reduces the chance of you topping that event, right? So if you imagine the first place is like building blocks, and you've got player skill, that's a block. Your list is another block. The missions are another block, and you keep on building up, and that's how you get to first place. All of these things together increase the chances of you getting your 4 wins, 5 wins, whatever. But just because you might not have one of the more powerful lists, it's true that you can totally win an event like that, but having a very strong list increases your chances.
Yeah. I see it from the viewpoint of, as you said, building a list with intent, right?
I think that's that's really good point.
Yeah, it's a really good point, but also I think we don't have the depth of interesting abilities yet. I know this is slightly
I'm going to
contentious.
fucking immediately veto that idea, but continue.
If you're playing something like Iron Jaws, you have a lot of tools. If you're playing something like Khorne Bloodbound, you don't.
Right, okay, that's fair.
So but the thing is, people will prefer to play Khorne Bloodbound because they're idiots that like fighting.
Specify.
And they
Khorne
make
Bloodbound are the
it work.
idiots that like fighting, not the people taking them.
No, I was talking about myself specifically.
Yeah, but
yeah,
the last event you went to, you played Khorne Bloodbound. It was not a bad list.
It wasn't a bad list, but I had to try and get a couple of pieces in that were bringing something, right?
Yeah,
it was a built list.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm saying is the intent was I want to go in there and fight, and then I want to have an ability or two that will give me a bit of extra. But if we're talking about the fact that, yes, I can do that, I don't have to build something super sharp. I can just kind of fluffily take a couple of extra things and just kind of try and make it work a bit. But like the requirements aren't super tight. It's not you have to build a super tight thing. As long as it gives you a few options, you can play around with that. If that's the point, I 100% agree. And I'll be honest, I prefer it this way because it gives you space to like take something that isn't entirely optimal, but it's fun, or you like it, or you really like the model and how you painted it. Or like there's plenty of people that come through with like fully converted warbands, and they've built them because of the models that they've converted. And the fact that it works and they can play the game and do quite well because of player skill is really good.
Yeah, no, I mean, Toast, if you got something to say, you can go.
No,
for
man,
it
I'm
before
totally
me.
fine. I'm chilling. I'm vibing.
No. Yeah, so I think it also comes down to, because part of the question is most players aren't really interested in the competitive nature, right? Even though they say they are. For me, I'm a competitive player in that I only play match play and I only play in events. So I'm very much interested in the competition, playing the best game that I can play. But I'm not necessarily interested in just taking, oh, here's the best thing, so I'm going to face roll with that. I don't know. Maybe that says more about me trying to prove something than whatever. But that does not mean
The
that.
next logical step in competing, right, is like,
Yeah.
you understand what's good, so you understand how to build against and play against what's good. And that's where, like, a lot of people get tripped up, especially when we had the meta where it was just FOMO Vanguard, FOMO Vanguard, FOMO Vanguard. Like, those were actively the best things to have on a team or to be doing at one point. But like, you being like, I'm gonna convert and bring what I want to play. It looks fun. That's hero stuff. And then the other one being like, I know what I need to build to go against these things in said mission pack. So I mean, like, those two things are the ingredients that make up competitive Warhammer and most competitive games. And I think that's where people don't realize, like, oh, I'm going to be sweaty to sit down and take the extra 10 minutes. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with understanding the game as a whole. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the question I had for Phylax before we like go too deep was, you said there wasn't enough, like the toolkit wasn't deep enough. What did you mean by that?
I mean that there are certain, if you
I
want to play certain factions, you have to be okay with like not having fun things to do. If you want to play Corn Demons, if that's what you want to play, you don't have a lot of tools beyond a bonus thing on kill, extra dice on around you, and whereas there are other factions like Iron Jaws that are like,
Okay, so the tools are
here's
evenly dispersed.
here's your push, here's
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
more so much
no,
than
I mean,
not enough. It's just they're not evenly distributed amongst teams.
they're
And
not
that's-
evenly distributed, and I think there's not enough across the breadth. But that's because we have a lot of they've only started doing really fun things. Even the first Underworlds warbands, they don't have anything particularly interesting. They don't have push pull mechanics. They don't have anything beyond like bonuses or like damage reduction or things like that. Not all of them. There's a few like interesting ones, but like the further back you go, the more kind of like locked down the abilities are. Whereas now you have like every single art boy can just fucking push things around, which is a really interesting interactive way to play.
But yeah, I don't actually think that the breadth of abilities or that kind of thing makes any kind of difference in terms of if you want to play, if you're going into it as a competitive player or not, right? So if I was to say, right, next tournament, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna play Corn Demons. You guys better watch out, because the best version of Corn Demons is going to go to that event. And that's me applying a competitive mindset to the faction that I'm going to play. And it'll be tailored to the mission pack. It'll be tailored to all the things that I expect to see. It'll be tailored to the meta that I expect to be there. That's what bringing a competitive mindset is to an event with you. Just because I'm not playing the best, hardest list, that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in being a competitive player. And I think we need to make this distinction between what is a competitive player. Is it someone who goes there to compete and the specific goal is for them to win the event? Or is it someone to go and play their best game and to get better at the game and to apply all the skills that they have into pushing whatever faction they pick up as far as it can go?
Yes, I completely agree with everything you just said there. And a thing that I've tried to push before is the idea of determining your success criteria when you go to an event. So if you are going to an event and you are bringing like the cutting edge meta-defining stuff, then yeah, your success criteria is absolutely reasonable to be, I want to get in the top 10%. And that's, I want to go 3-1, I'm going to go 4-0, right? That's fine. But if you're bringing something that's a little bit more weird, but it's still, you've tuned it, but your success criteria could be good. I want to try and get 2-2. And if you land that 2-2,
Yes.
then boom,
Yes.
you have had a successful event, and that is completely fine to do. Being competitive doesn't necessarily mean being number one at all times. It's doing the best you can with what you decide to bring. And if that's complete crap and you still do really well, that's a fucking success. Define that success criteria beforehand. And you can do this as an absolute freaking pro. You can do this as a brand new player. You could be brand new. If you go in there going, I want to win one game, and that's success. You get that one game, you fucking nailed it, bro. Good on you.
That is absolutely 100% what I wanted to follow up is like identifying correct criteria to success, right? And you and I have talked, Toast. You and I have talked privately before about that. I think that's really smart, right? Like if you're like I'm bringing in Corvus Cabal. If I go 2-2, if I go 3-1, like I've already succeeded. It doesn't make a difference. I took a 1 box or I took like an old bespoke and then I just outperformed with it. It shows that I'm good. It shows that I can take something that's like middling and make it good. Like, and then I had a good result with it. That's awesome. And I think that's brilliant. And I think if people want to do that, I heavily encourage them to that. Some people's criteria to success is I had the coolest warband that was converted up and I had a great time, right? And on top of that, I wanted to also follow up on Itan, talking about everything it was, the competitive mindset. Shameless self-plug for 3H1C if you guys want to check out my stuff that I talk about with my team. That's something we set out from the right get-go, is to just say, hey, competitive's not all sweaty neckbeards that want to curse you out, sweat, and have a bad time. It's about taking what you have and doing the best of what you can do in that spot. And I think that is the correct mindset for a lot of things, more than just this, right? That's a transcendent idea of trying to apply that to other situations. But I think in this, like, especially going to, like, people are scared to go to tournaments. Like there's a fear, a social anxiety, there's other things, but I promise you, if you go, you're going to have like one of the best days of your life, because it's a great time. As long as your TO is a half competent human being, which like 98% of them are in Warcry. And I only say that because I've yet to meet a bad one. Everything's good, man. Like, have a good time. Just define what your success is and play your best. That makes you competitive. You try to play your best. It doesn't mean you're going to dominate, but that's awesome though, dude. And that's what helps community grow. Both you guys are like 10 for 10 for those ideas. Like,
well, I just wanted to say as well, like, I think part of what people kind of get stuck on is we're talking about how player skill is like a big building block for success, right? However, there's very little content out there except for 3 Heroes 1 Chaff specifically doing things about, hey, if you're playing this, if you're in this situation, this is the best way of like extricating yourself, or like giving you stuff about the actual game and actual gameplay and advice that you can actually use when you're in the tight spot. You know, how to properly use inspiring presence, I think, is one of those kind of markers of a really great player that keeps always an eye out on, hey, how can I use a triple that otherwise wouldn't really do anything to like use activation advantage to absolutely like nuke something, means that it doesn't get the hit back, and it means that it's setting me up. Like, there's things like that very few channels actually touch on. Even though on AOS side you see that there's like coaches and there's services that you can get that will sit with you and like take you through all of this stuff. So the fact that you guys have it on like videos on YouTube for free is incredible to me.
there was what is it, inspiring presence. I think Mike, one of the players on 3H1C a long time ago, had met up with one of the Dogs of War, one of the original like OG YouTube narrative boys for Warcry. Yep. And they had like a 15 or 20 minute gallivant on a talk specifically about like the niche uses of inspiring presence.
I'm going to put that video in the link down below, because that's actually a fantastic video. Highly recommend you watch it.
Do you know why?
It is super good.
Because the game that he was talking about was a game that me and Mike played where I used inspiring presence to clinch a draw.
To net something, like, and then move, right? And then have the
basically Yeah. Because otherwise, I would have lost. And it was the only winning move was to use Inspiring Presence, and I was like, back then I was like, I knew none of you guys. It was actually wild to see that, to be watching a video and Mike mentioned it. I was like, that's wild.
Yeah, dude, there's a lot of cool shit out there too, like, and a lot of good game experiences that like we bring up that like I've brought up with you guys, that you guys have brought up, like I remember that now that I totally forgot that was about you, actually. Like the reference of it was pretty sick. But yeah, it's definitely, put that link up because that's a really awesome video. It's a really, really, I don't think they did anything else since then, but like it was like a one of, and it was fantastic. And that's when like Warcry was kind of like when I first came onto the scene, and it was still felt fledgling. And now it's like there's a lot more people talking about it, and a lot more, like, especially TTS leagues. And like, it's crazy because you mentioned all these tournaments are coming up, and like half the people we know from the people in TTS league that are like now doing their own community shit. I know Smart is one of them that does a lot in Spain. And he reaches out to there, and like he tries to do stuff like that. I thought the Croatia one was Maliak for a second, because I believe he lives out there. I haven't seen him in a hot minute around there. If you're listening, please come back.
Dude, Maliak is insane.
Yes, that's a good point.
League dominator. Yeah. Yet to beat him after
hours.
Yes.
He also just counts to 15. He's an advocate for like 14-man OBR, and I was like, that's when they were like 55 points or something crazy, and I was like, all right, this needs to stop. And now we're in the time of where it stopped, so
we're back.
We're okay.
Coming back.
Well, I mean, might not.
Even not.
That's true. Might not. Points, I think, is what deters it now.
That's true, yeah.
Unless you just specifically have like one spooky boy and then a bunch of spooky boys. But yeah, no, it's cool, dude. There's a lot of cool stuff.
I think with Inspiring Presence, right, it's like one of those abilities, just to touch on that a bit more, is that it's like a back pocket, right? It's in your toolbox, but people forget about it all the time. And I think what separates like a veteran...
Skilled?
Dude, I forget about it all the time. The amount of times you bust out Inspiring Presence on me, I'm like, shit. I've fallen for this again. Like, really? It's just.
Yeah, it's one of those toolbox things that you pull out, that you keep in the back of your mind, and you pull it out, and then you tend to win because no one expects it. And it's those little toolbox things, those little back pocket things that your faction can do, that anyone can do, that separate you. You level up into more of a veteran, a venerable Warcry player, and it can go as far as like I try to mention this in my videos all the time, where I don't like to see abilities bad, and I like to try and find a situational use for it. And for example, Corvus Cabal, easy one. Their reaction is no one knows what it is, right? It's so underused in a warband that's fairly underplayed. No one knows what it does. But that reaction situationally can win games. It's unbelievably good if you set it up in the right situation at the right time. And having that in your back pocket is fantastic. And keeping those little back pocket players ready for those key situations is always a good thing. Highly recommended that you try and do that. Try and find the niche use for the things that may be considered terrible, and then pull it out. Let's go with that. Trap card, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Nothing is more backbreaking than winning through Inspiring Presence on someone who thinks they have it cinched, and then you pull it out of your back pocket, activate it, remove their key piece, and then they just fall behind on tempo, and it kind of seals it out. It's happened to me, and I've done it to people, and it's when it happens, it's like it takes your breath away for a second, because like you forget about it. You're in the mindset of who's tacking here, who's moving here, what dice am I moving, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I could just flat out universally activate a guy with a triple. Like, it's not the best triple, because like, and that's what you're not thinking about, but shit, it does work.
Someone gave a I'm sure it was Rat Spike from the Underworld's warband, the Hexbane Hunters, right? Gave him the 10-point blessing to use Inspiring Presence as if he was a hero, right? And I forgot he had it. I'd killed all of his heroes, and he beat us with Inspiring Presence off a fucking dog I didn't kill.
That's awesome.
It was great. And it was a throwaway 10-point thing he had.
You never forget that lesson, too. You never forget that lesson.
It's evil.
No. Unless you're Eitan, in which case you forget it all.
I forget it every single time. I forget about inspiring presence, because that's not what I'm thinking about, right? I'm thinking about how to move like 15 spiders across the board to actually try and kill
Exactly. That's listen. If you
inspiring
have the
presence of
mental
spider.
overload of like all of those, that's why I play like 6 to 8. I don't go further than that. I don't have the brain capacity. Sorry, Rob, you were saying?
Nah, yeah, I was asking my daughter if she ate her dinner. Like I
Okay.
was.
But yeah, anyway, so I hope that answers the
In a
question,
roundabout
right?
way.
Toast about competitive players.
Yeah,
Our great tangent
You
about
know, I
inspiring
think
presence.
it really boils down
Yeah,
is
I mean,
that the first half of it, it'll be on screen now again, produced somewhere. The first part of it, I think, puts too much weight on lists themselves and not enough weight on actual player skill. I think the second part, I think the true competitive play is like the sticking point we all have. It's like define true competitive play because we've defined it in a bunch of different ways, and I don't think anyone can actually agree that players aren't interested in true competitive play, really. That's my takeaway anyway.
Yeah. No, I think that if we're looking at it from like true competitive being like very, you can get away with being slightly less competitive and slightly more fluffy, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
But like there's competitive as the guys have defined it, which is like I'm going for first place and I'm like really like focused, and there's competitive as in I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna analyze the pack, and I'm gonna build a team that is like well rounded for the pack and that is fun for me and also gives me the tools to deal with, all the potential things that might come up.
Yeah.
I think it's just different approaches for what we think is the same thing, but I prefer the approach that we currently have. I prefer having a bit of space.
Yeah.
Because it means that you don't. If the only way to win was to play like the really strong pieces, that means that the game is not particularly well balanced, or it's not set up for fun.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I don't know.
The other comment that came through in the hot takes is by our boy Milk Thief. We all like Milk Thief here. I'm going to hide this in chat because I like this a lot. It's very much from the perspective of a game designer, I think, which I think is somewhat fitting. I've put it in chat. So function over form. Telling people to play what they want hurts them more than giving them good advice on list building. The fact that the rules could change later, and the second part is the fact that the rules could change later and leave the warband you pick different isn't as impactful as people think when they're working with 8 to 10 models. So that's two separate takes there. So the first part though, function over form. Good list building advice is better than play what they want to play. And I agree, but at the same time, my whole channel is passionate hyperbole about making a warband you want to play. You want to play a warband? I'm going to tell you how you can play that warband you want to play. It might not win you tournaments, but this is how you can play it and how it can work. And I don't agree. I think that showing people how to play the warband they want goes further than telling them what to build. That makes sense. Telling them like, "Oh, don't do that. Do this instead. Like, play something better."
Yeah, no. So I think for the first part of this, it depends where you are in your hobby, right? If you are just starting out and you're like, I want to play Warcry, I haven't played anything else, don't know what it's about. The advice is always play what you want because first and foremost, this is a modeling and painting game, right? You have to collect the fighters, you have to build them, you got to paint them, you got to do all that stuff, and sticking with that is much easier if you like the models and you're like vibing with the theme of the warband or the miniatures or whatever, than if you're just bringing something just because it's good or just because it isn't good. So if you're right at the beginning, I would say, yeah, man, play whatever you like the look of, and then come back to me and ask me for advice about how I should play these guys better.
Yeah.
If you've been playing for a while, and it's like, if you've been playing for a while, then no, the advice isn't play what you want, because you understand how your warband works and you want to get better at the game and you want to build better lists. And sometimes that means not playing what you want, but playing what's better in a specific situation. So yeah, I think it all depends where you are on that whole journey. And I do think that a lot of people really underplay the modeling side of the hobby and how time consuming that is. Because if you're going to play one game of Warcry a week and you're going to build your warband, paint your warband, building and painting a warband is going to take you 4, 5, 6 hours to do. So that's already 6 times longer than you've spent just playing your game. So if you want to get someone into the hobby and you want them to stick, they need to like the models. And that's kind of where the starting point is.
I think you nailed it, honestly.
Also, I was going to say, I think 4, 5, 6 hours to build a Warcry warband is I think it's if you do it properly and you try to gap fill and get all the
not even. Just like people really underestimate the amount of time it takes to clip all the models off the sprue, to build all the things, to spray it, to paint it, to do all that stuff. It takes hours
I guess
and hours.
No, I agree.
It's just, I'm like blazing fast. Mold lines, didn't even know what that was till like a month ago. I'm like, is it together? Is it primed? Can I paint it? Good. It's gonna be ready for tournament.
You stick the unbuilt sprue onto a base, and you're ready.
Yeah, it's just glued on pieces.
Some shit, not right. Back in the day, of old metal models, right? When I was a wee Ben, right, went to a event in a Games Workshop thing, and this kid had a Eldar with a big fancy sword in the classic Y pose, right, and he thought that a bit of flash was just like a cool part of the hilt, and he painted it up. He'd sprayed it, he painted it.
Hell yeah,
and he had
dog.
this like big honking chunk of like metal attached to this guy's sword, and he thought it was just a cool hilt.
Nice.
It was amazing.
I can see it though. I can see how someone would be like, "Oh, that's just like a little bit of decoration."
Listen, man, I've shaved stuff off of models before that were actual detail. Me thinking they're just model lines. But yeah, that's that, right? And yes, your warband could change.
Yes.
FAQs will come in, erratas will come in. You'll have to do something different. But by that time, I would expect you to be far enough along the hobby that it's like, okay, well, now I have the tools to deal with this because I played those initial games and I know what I'm doing and I know how I'm building.
So I know Milk Thief very well. We have a lot of conversation. Guy comes from a very heavily competitive background in MTG. Super cool dude. He's got a dope game. He's a I think he's a head developer on Ember Knights, which is an awesome indie game on Steam. If you guys ever heard of it, it's like a co-op Hades but pixel. Check it out. Really super fun, cheap, really great time. Comes from a very, very, very strict, very disciplined competitive background. And I think the advice in terms, if you were to give somebody who is trying to compete to win a tournament, I would say yes, function over form. Don't not always wanting to play what you want. That's just part of the world you live in. There are exceptions to that rule. I do think the good advice, like you said, starting off, you're just starting off, play what you want, have fun. And then when you realize that, like, hey, maybe I do want to play to win, then you have to start looking at what's good and change into that. And the impact of something that's different when working with 8 to 10 models, I kind of interpret that as like shifting away from it, if you're okay with that, is not as detrimental as like I talked about before, like shifting to a whole new army. So it's like, oh, I could just replace a piece or two, or I could pick up another box next paycheck. Like, yes, it's money. People have different financial positions, and some people don't like spending. Some people do. Some people whales. Like there's a whole diversity there. That's how I interpret it, at least. But definitely the advice, like what he said, the hot take is really good for competitive.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't give it to somebody walking in the front door like, hey guys, what's this Warcry game all the cool kids are talking about? Said no one. But like I think that's how I interpret it. You need to have
something fast, and you need to have a tall, and then you need to surround them with smalls, and then the person's like, what?
Take a Baron Guard, have a good time.
I just want to play the furries.
So the second part,
Lords of Karanak?
No, Toast had a video about
those are
how
scalies.
Yes, yeah. No, he like the guys with all the fur.
Oh, the Untamed Beasts.
And the really
yes,
shiny
the Untamed Beasts, man, they're so shiny.
I watch your
I know,
videos.
I don't though. I made that 2 weeks ago. I forgot that I did it.
It's fair.
It's on a methamphetamine bender. I just made
Yeah, man.
videos.
Post-production cycle is basically the same as Games Workshop.
It is.
He made these videos 3 years ago and has forgotten completely what he said.
You can't hold me accountable for my work I did in the past.
No, I mean I agree with a lot of what both of you were saying. I think you need to like weigh up the person you have across from you and give them the advice that they're looking for.
Yeah.
If they're coming to you and they're asking what should I play depends on what you want. If you want something that looks cool and you're gonna play like random scenarios from the cards, like whatever. But if it's your pal that's come over from playing competitive Age of Sigmar and he goes, right, what should I play? You sit down and you go, right, what do you have? What do you enjoy playing? Okay, you've got this Age of Sigmar army. Let's build you something. And then you go into list building because this is a person where that information's going to actually like stick. You just have to like tailor your advice to the level of knowledge. And sometimes the person that's asking you doesn't know like what their level is, and you have to kind of make a decision on that. And Toast, I'm gonna come through to you in just 1 second, but I just want to say like the stuff getting different, like it's gonna get different so that it fits the current meta. So like if you want to keep playing something that's broken, like that's on you.
I think the people who are really competitive, like they're gonna throw the money for that. Like especially if like you were in Magic and you had a deck that was like a grand or two, and then if they just banned a super big piece, you're like, well, I can take it apart, I could sell the pieces, I can build a new deck up. Like it's the investment those types of players are willing to make for that. So it's not very differential. But for someone that just like walked in the front door, like I just spent $60 though, you're telling me, like then it would be, I'd say, hey, it's kind of a big deal. Like because like I don't ever want to downplay people who like the guy like any guy who wants to just play one, or guy or gal wants to play one box, like go for it. But like
sure, but
if you want to win top table, if you want to have a better chance, then you got to start playing a little bit tighter.
But I agree. But that's the thing. Every one box has just gone up. It's not gone down. Like the only one that maybe you can make an argument for is Horns of Hashut, and that's come down in power because it was a bit oppressive otherwise. So why would you want that?
Just to touch on the second half that take as well. I completely agree with this. There's very few cases where changes to your warband. I can think of about three massive ones that have really impacted the game, and that is the targeted nerfs on Calthea support for Thick Boy Cardio. That was just took out of the game. You can't do that now, basically. And the hit to Caradon Overlords, and the massive change to Iron Jaws. But in all of those cases, like Thick Boy Cardio, every single model in Thick Boy Cardio is useful somewhere else. Repurpose them, right? The list is no longer viable, but the parts of that list are completely viable everywhere. They're common picks everywhere else. Iron Jaws had a massive change. Their whole playstyles changed. And I think that's probably one of the more impactful ones because you can't play Iron Jaws the same anymore. And that's the only time I can really think of where it's like, you know what? Yeah, you can't actually play the way you used to play anymore. But even KO, they're still kind of fine. Soulblight, another one, big one, Soulblight. They've been nerfed, but they're still the Hordy, Undead, Resurrecty, Twatty faction no one likes to play against. I think that's spot on. For the most part, despite massive changes, most warbands don't actually change that much. And if they do change, we can repurpose anything. It's fine. Warcry is a small enough game, we can do that.
Yeah.
And
we're talking about one or two models, basically. You can still play the same warband you did. You drop one guy, and you're basically playing the same list.
Yeah.
If you really, really want to, like Horns of Hashut players, they had a list, and they were like, okay, my guys have gone up in points. All right, well, my Fomoroid is now of X-War, and I'm running the same list.
Yeah, that's what they did.
And now Flamethrowers have gone up in points. Okay, so my Fulmoroid is now a Vexmore, and I drop one Shatterer, and I'm running the same list. Is it as effective as it used to be? No, because you don't have as many guys. But ultimately, you're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the reason it was nerfed to begin with, because it was
Sure.
too efficient.
Sure.
Speaking of Horns
So,
of a Show,
it
just to
just means
derail
that it's
slightly there,
healthier.
I made a video on Horns of a Show, right?
for it.
And I said, really stupidly, with all my whole chest, with full confidence, never ever take 2 flame hurlers. Best take anyone's ever had on Warcry. Never take 2 flame hurlers. I still up.
When did you say
It was
that?
my Horns of a Show, but it was one of my first videos when I first started like making content.
Holy
The
shit.
worst take
Like
you've
2 years
ever
ago,
heard.
probably.
It's still there.
Oh my god.
I
Aged like
I know,
milk.
right?
Like,
So, I mean, it depends. Again, like advice tailored to specific people. I would rather people took 1 flame hurler and learn how to play with the rest of their warband than take 2 flame hurlers and rely on it. Because the reason why you're taking flame hurlers is because it's like damage that is certain. And it's not even that certain. It's a bit of a gamble, but it means that you don't care about high toughness. But it's still a dice roll. So if there's a way you can play your warband to use those dice more effectively, I'm just saying that like not running 2 flame hurlers is not like completely like taking Horns of Hashut out of commission. Like you might have to learn to play the rest of your warband and use your dice in like more
Yeah,
inventive
bring
ways.
more Twin Hammer demolishers.
there is a thing called a ceiling. However,
Totally.
it does free up ash bomb usage more. But I would still bring 2. With that being said, I'll pay the $40 point price hike. They're so unbelievably good when they're good. Like, and the other, you know
When-
what, dude? It's again like, what's up?
when they're good.
Yeah, I
when
mean,
they're
like
good.
nothing
It's
is
still a
nothing.
dice roll.
Nothing is like stone unless it was like you got a triple, remove their model. Then I would be like, well, like okay. If I had to do nothing, I've had it like have a mega boss before, so it's like, but it's still the ceiling of it is still good, and the ceiling of the actual warband is like if their mid-range boys were a little better, I would say so. But that hurler was something special. When Javi brought 3 of them, right? 3 of them, 1 in each deployment.
Wild.
Like it's special, right? It's wild. It's hard for people like in a limited game. It's hard for people to handle skewed stuff. Like you can handle 1 mega boss, but handling 2, that's a lot. You can handle 1 rat ogre. Can you handle 2? It's kind of tough.
You know what handles 2 mega bosses of Girth, right? Having terrain on your board. That does it. Can't move then.
Nah,
No, actually, it's called using a triple or a quad to get more
That's
moves. So
true.
you move them 6 inches at a clip.
That is true, man. Quad is so good.
Learn how to play,
I know, right?
toast.
I still remember I got completely bodied by Iron Jaws because I wasn't expecting someone to basically hide a mega boss, and he won by having ultra fast Iron Jaws. He was running around the board at hyper speed. It was always war.
That's all I
If he
did.
ever got a low triple, he
all I
made
did.
a quad and did great war, which is always the +3, and it was insane. I've never seen
Yep.
orcs move so quickly. It's so good.
That's how I won. That's how I won Nova. Ask Kyle about it. Kyle's like, your whole team just moved 12 inches and just boxed out my team, and I couldn't do anything. And I'm like, yep.
and you
I have
have
the fast-
charge, so you can move 18 if you want.
That's true.
Right. So like get for sure. Well, that's how I set up Great Wog, and then I took a double and I took the other mega boss. He moved 6 and then charged 6 and then halved his Duval in one go off like Unfeeling Flesh too. And I was like, well, it's the breaks, kids. Have fun. Have fun with your no resers left on the board. Nobody feels bad. Soul Blight Graveblades. Soul Blight Graveblades.
They're coming back, I'm telling you, man. They're coming back one day.
They are coming back.
Well,
Oh,
we
yeah.
saw half the tournaments had them on the top
Yeah.
3, so
They know.
they never went away.
They know the source. Right, Toast. Any more hot takes
Those
you want us to
are
take?
the 2 big ones. I think it's probably time to wrap it. About 2.5 hours of recording. So we'll probably just wrap it up and do an outro and some plugs and go to bed.
if you've stuck with us this entire time, thank you very, very much for your time. And well done on following through all of this crazy conversation. But just to do some plugs, Eitan, where can people find your stuff?
Yes, find me over at Off Meta Musings. I talk about Warcry. That's all I talk about. Toast is on there sometimes. You're on there sometimes. Rob's on there sometimes. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely. Rob, where can people find your stuff?
You can go check out some 3H1C, short for 3 Heroes 1 Chaff. I almost said 3 Heroes 1 Cup. That would have been a big MC. That would have been a very different channel you checked out.
The same joke every time, and it's still funny.
For sure, dude. Nah, dude, 3 Heroes 1 Chaff. We're good. It's a good time. It's 4 of us working together. We're friends.
Who's the chaff?
We'll have some new content coming out soon. Yep. You never know. The chaff is always kept hidden.
Rotating.
It keeps everybody humble. And the person, whoever stays at home, is always a hero. So you know when you're the chaff, though. You know when it's there. It's a very psychologically punishing thing.
And also just one last plug to the Tabletop Simulator Warcry League, both competitive and casual. The deadline for that is November 4th.
Yeah, dude, it's November 4th. Sign up on the War Tally. We'll post some links up. We already got a bunch of people there. There's casual, so if you don't want to sweat, if you want to have fun, show up with a different list each week and just have some people to play. It's a great time. If you want to sweat a little bit, you want to get some, you want to start fighting some of the Europeans off, you absolutely join Comp League, and then you fight the good fight.
Nice. I
feel like that's half my life is fighting off the Europeans in there. You guys are all competitive players, and it's just one. It's like Saving Private Ryan for me in there. I'm just up to my neck.
As for my stuff, you can find me on Instagram at Lord Phylax. No tournaments too close on the horizon, but if there are, you'll hear of them from me. It's going to be a productive winter. So keep your eyes on the Instagram. You'll see the list that I took down to Southampton. I've taken some really nice pictures, so that's going to go up soon.
It'll be beautiful.
Thank you. I'll be painting a lot more in the next couple of months. So there's going to be content. And lastly, Toast.
Hello.
Over to you.
What am I doing?
Where can we find you, Toast?
You can find me here. You're on my channel right now. Click on the little thing, hit like, subscribe, ignore everyone else. That's my stuff. I need the views. I do 5 videos a week.
Well, there's
definitely 5 videos a week. I'm in the dungeon. Please send help. I can't escape. Endless content mine.
Did we end the exit yet?
No, not yet. We're still going.
Dude, this is Toast. This is Off Meta. This is Lord Phylax and Girth Demon signing off. Have a great time. Thank you for listening to the Wild Dice podcast. You can find it on wherever Toast is going to put it up and edit it. Have a great time. If you guys are Patreon supporters of Off Meta or Toast, you probably could find some bloopers coming soon. Me and Phylax occasionally touch tips. Have a great night.
Nailed it.
See you guys later. Woo! That's a wrap.
Oh.
Wonderful.